everyone and welcome back to Typical City. Could Manchester City be banned from the Champions League next season? Those are the scaremongering tactics that the media are trying to impose on Manchester City fans once again. Sticking a dagger into the heart of Manchester City fans is a very popular tactic within the media these days, and once again ESPN's Mark Ogden and the Daily Mirror's Dan Marsh are at it again, trying to scare Manchester City fans to even support the club. Looking into our future is such a damning prospect for Manchester City fans, and again they're just trying to instill that fear factor. But I'm here on Typical City, and that's what I like to do on this channel, to pour a big old bucket on the fire that they're trying to ignite, and I'm quite frankly sick of it. Quite frankly sick of hearing the anti-Man City agenda that's just integrated throughout the majority of the media these days, and it's sickening. With headlines like, Man City could be banned from Champions League as nightmare scenario draws closer. I'll get onto that scenario in a minute, by the way. And alternatively, why Girona winning La Liga could be bad news for Manchester City. Now there's the clue as to what this video is about, is the multi-club ownership model of Manchester City and Girona, as well as numerous other clubs throughout Europe and plenty of other continents across the globe. But the reason this affects Manchester City is because it's within Europe, therefore the Champions League. Now, the rules, in a very, very wrapped up, convenient nutshell for the anti-Man City people, are along the lines of, should two clubs from the same ownership group qualify for the same UEFA competition, the side which finishes higher in its domestic championship gets the place. If the two teams finish in the same position, the one with the highest club coefficiency ranking, which is Manchester City in this case, because we've been in Champions League for years and years and years, compared to Girona, they would be awarded qualification. But if Girona win La Liga and City finish second in the Premier League, Girona would play in next season's Champions League and City would drop into the Europa League. Dun, dun, dun. That's the fear factor. That's what they're trying to instill into Manchester City fans. They obviously haven't done their homework, or they have, and they've chosen not to provide it to the public, and just to grab attention, get headlines once again. And it's a bit sickening, really. Because, I mean, they have gone into details in these articles about the actual percentage of ownership, which is a huge clue as to what is going on with these multi-club ownership models. So, for example, CFG is the ownership that's, for those that don't know, City Football Group own 100% of Manchester City. They also have shareholds in plenty of other football clubs around the world, not just in Europe either. I think 6 other continents, if I remember rightly. I can't remember the exact number, but so many football clubs, and it's impressive. It's an impressive ownership model. They have 47% in Girona, so they are not the majority shareholders. They've failed to declare that in both of these guys, I say guys lightly, clowns articles, because they're just trying to scare you and sell papers and put the fear factor and give our rival fans something to get excited about once again, and they'll be inevitably disappointed when they likely see Girona and Manchester City competing in the Champions League. And it's hats off to Girona, by the way, who are going toe-to-toe with Real Madrid in La Liga right now, challenging them for La Liga. I mean, the clue is the fact that Girona applied for a UEFA registration license, so they could therefore take part in the competition. They did that last season when they were so close to Europa Conference League football. They didn't get in it, unfortunately. But this season, the likeliness of Girona getting into the Champions League is incredibly high, because they are going toe-to-toe with Real Madrid. Real Madrid, I think, beat Getafe last night 2-0, so I think they've gone back top. But it is blow for blow. And it's really, really interesting. City, of course, are doing it as well. There is no mention of the fact that if City go and win the Champions League, then we're guaranteed a spot. There's no mention of that, because that's likely, reasonably likely. I'm pretty sure we're the favourites in the competition to go and win it again. So if we were to go and win the Champions League and finish second in the Premier League, but Girona finished top, we'd still get in the Champions League because you have given us the right to defend our title as Champions League holders. We're in it again, as we are the holders right now. We could be next season. That wasn't mentioned whatsoever. But there's other little intricate bureaucratic tricks that go on behind the scenes, and not just with CFG. And that's another factor as to why it's all about little old City once again. But nobody wants to talk about Manchester City. Nobody. Yet why are we seeing headlines like this? It baffles me. It absolutely baffles me. But there are, quickly onto the intricate details that, I mean, you're getting into really complex like laws within UEFA that's so easy to dance around for the business savvy individuals that are not just at CFG, as well as other ownership models out there in world football, that are able to avoid these rules, basically, and play little tricks. For example, on the face of it, 47% is not a majority shareholder because 53% is owned elsewhere. The 47% owned by CFG is the clue as to what's going on, but really it's more about not about where the money's coming from. It's about who is spending it, and inserting certain individuals into certain job titles and roles within that football club, and who spends the money. And therefore, you could bring in a separate entity, a separate third party to do the spending for you, to do the transfers for you, to do all the expenditure that comes out of a football club could be handled by a third party, which the money could effectively come from CFG. But who spends it and who's directly involved and who says yes to the deals and no to the deals can be done by someone else. And therefore, they are not part of the same ownership model, or at least the transfer dealings are not part of the same transfer ownership model, sorry. That goes to so many other clubs, by the way, but once again, all we hear about is Manchester City and how it can impact negatively on Manchester City. And that's why I really do want you to subscribe, believe it or not. I do. Like and subscribe to Typical City, in particular if you're a City fan, because I'm going to continuously pour water on the fires that these media clowns are trying to pump out into the public and get you scared and get you believing this nonsense and believing the facts that not facts whatsoever, but believing this information that Manchester City are going to be banned in the Champions League. If Girona win the league, City are out. We're banned, apparently, unless we win the league ourselves, and that makes it a very, very high pressure situation for Manchester City and fearful supporting Manchester City. It's utter nonsense, complete nonsense. And this doesn't just stop with Manchester City, by the way, because you only need to look across the road at Ineos, for example, who have a majority sharehold in Nice, who are currently sat in second place in League 2. I think they're 6 points behind PSG, if memory serves me. So they've also got a 25% sharehold in Manchester United. Do you hear any headlines about Manchester United being banned from next season's Champions League? Probably because they're not likely to even get in it. It's more of a problem for Nice than it is for Manchester United. Nice are looking at United like, look at that little old red club there, that little Manchester United who used to get in the Champions League. They don't get in it anymore. So they're the problem. They're the pests in Nice's garden, aren't they? They're the ones who are worried about it if that was the case. But they know full well there's nothing to worry about. But you don't hear those headlines, do you? You don't hear Manchester United could be banned from the Champions League if Nice win Liga, or if whatever the situation is of two clubs from the same umbrella of ownership being in part of the same competition. And it doesn't just stop at Manchester United either. Liverpool, who have got 11% ownership, the FSG group that own Liverpool, there is an 11% stake in the FSG from the Red Bird Capital. They own Toulouse, and they have an 85% ownership of Toulouse. Toulouse and Liverpool played each other in the Europa League this season in the same group. Did you hear anything about that? Did you hear anything about the ownership model? And did you hear about Liverpool could be banned from the Europa League? No, because there's no agenda against Liverpool. There's no agenda against Manchester United either. None of that. Absolutely nothing to worry about with regards to Manchester United or Liverpool or any other ownership model. Again, it goes down to Brighton, who apparently Brighton or Tony Bloom, the owner of Brighton, had to sell down his stake in Saint-Gilloise, which therefore he then had to pledge that he had no more transfer or any cooperations with them, that particular club, until next season. Because guess what? Saint-Gilloise are now in Europe as well as Brighton. Did you hear any headlines? I didn't. I didn't hear a single word. But as of right now, the last 4 or 5 days, because of Girona and their current position in La Liga, they are so likely to get into the Champions League that they want those rules to come into place, because guess who it affects in their eyes? Manchester City. And the idea of banning Manchester City from the Champions League is a very good one in their eyes. Terrible media, it really is. It's just an absolute smear campaign. It's an agenda. Once again, Aston Villa owners, V Sport, they did exactly the same with Vitória Guimarães in Portugal. Both those clubs are in Europe. You can go back all the way to the two RB clubs that was the first real indication of this ownership model, with RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg, who are both owned by RB, Red Bull. They played so many bureaucratic tricks to get around this, and they've got an even more difficult, intricate little details that go on in the Bundesliga, because there is a 50+1 rule in the Bundesliga where they have to have a fan stakeholder, whereas reports are suggesting that Leipzig included fans from but it was apparently Red Bull employees that they said no, they're just big fans of Leipzig, but apparently it was just RB employees being included as well. So there's so many other clubs that are doing these little tricks and intricate details, dancing around the rules. But once again, it's Manchester City who are the in the shop window for hatred, for everyone to look at and say, get them banned. And for me, it's pure jealousy, just because we're the best club in the world right now, the most well-ran football club in the world, impeccably ran, and we have an ability to dance around these rules like no other, but we are painted in a picture like we're the only ones doing it. It's an absolute sham. It really is. And the idea that City needs to be banned and the focus being on Manchester City, this is why I make these videos. And the fact that this isn't new news in terms of City and Girona and the conflict of interest in multi-club ownership. They were saying that at the start of the season when Girona started to play well. They're saying it even more now because Girona is current position. But I just wanted to pour a big old bucket on that fire and let you not worry about it. But there is a potential future bridge that we might need to cross, because CFG don't just own Girona. We also own 3 other European clubs where the majority stakeholdership is more than 50%. In fact, it's 100% of ES Troyes, who are currently 15th in French League 2. So very little to worry about as a threat of getting into the Champions League. They're not even in the Ligue 1. So there's very little threat there. But there is also something linked to CFG, is the fact that Savio, who is currently owned by ES Troyes, is loaned to Girona and is currently reported as a target for Manchester City. So there is so many little intricate networks of players and dealings and ongoings. It's just crazy as a fan, it's hard to get a grasp of what really goes on with these dealings, but the theme of it is Manchester City are the bad guys and what we're doing is terrible, whereas there is so much evidence of other football clubs doing exactly the same. And I mean, it's frustrating. Also, Lommel SK, they are also owned 100% by CFG. They are currently 5th in the Belgian 2nd division, so again, no current threat to being a conflict of interest with the multi-club ownership. Palermo, 80% owned by CFG. They're currently 5th in Italy's Serie B. So again, it's a way off from ever seeing a threat from ES Troyes, Lommel SK or Palermo ever getting into the Champions League and threatening Manchester City's spot. But you know full well there will be dealings that will go into place to prevent this conflict from happening and triggering that rule to actually get one of us kicked out of the Champions League. It will go on, but it's not like we're the only club that's doing it. And the reason why I'm incredibly frustrated to see once again Manchester City's name being dragged through the mud and headlines like Man City could be banned from Champions League as nightmare scenario draws closer. It is a disgrace in truth and a genuine agenda against Manchester City. And I think we need to kind of get used to it. I think we need to get used to it and embrace it almost. Use it as fuel, because we've been using the whole 115 charges, and that's in the same bracket as all this media hatred that's towards Manchester City. It's in the exact same bracket. And for me, I'm starting to use it as fuel. It got me making this video, and it's going to get Manchester City motivated to win Premier League titles. It did wonders for us from the 6th of February of last season in 2023. We went on an unbelievable winning streak as soon as the Premier League charges were announced. So keep at it, guys. Keep throwing your dirty little headlines our way. No problem. Because we'll lap it up and use it as fuel and start destroying the football teams that you want to do well. Good luck with that. What are your thoughts, Blues? Get in the comments below. I really want to hear your thoughts. Like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up silverware.